All right, thank you. We got a very good crowd out here tonight, so thanks everybody for coming. Lots of new faces, which is awesome. Tonight we're doing part 6 of the Semi-Slav series that we're on. We're doing the complete Semi-Slav. So we're about halfway done with the series, so I appreciate everybody that's been following along with the whole series here. It's been a lot of fun, and we got a lot more good stuff coming. We're trying to film, so hopefully this is being recorded, because Ben Simon isn't here, so we got Danny Machuca behind the camera. So hopefully everything's going all right, and you guys get to see this on YouTube. Otherwise, we're doing the same class next week, I guess. That's the deal. Okay, but we're going to get right to it. So Danny's going to pan slightly to the right, and then we're going to get started here on the board. So we are looking at the Semi-Slav, so we're going to get to our main position here, where we got our little triangle, the Semi-Slav. And for the past several weeks, we've been focused only on the move E3. However, tonight we're going to, for the first time, have a look at some of the even sharper lines with bishop to G5. Now, this is probably the most natural move in the position because you want to get your bishop outside of the pawn chain. So already, a very normal move. And if black doesn't do anything, like we just make some legal move, well, now white plays E3, the C4 pawn is protected, and everything is normal. So white here would just get everything that he wants. So the onus kind of is on black to do something now. If he's got to create some problems or try to show that white can't do this. And if he's going to do that, he's got to do it now. So tonight, we're going to begin focusing on the move D takes C4. The other move that we're going to cover later is H6. And this can lead to the Moscow or the anti-Moscow. So we'll look at those we'll look at if they capture and if they go back in the future of this series. But tonight, we're going to focus on taking the pawn on C4. Okay, and this leads to some of the sharpest and most complicated positions in all of chess. And I've been asked that a lot. Like, people ask me, what is the most complicated opening in all of chess? And I always say the Botvinnik Variation of the Semi-Slav. So we're going to look at some pretty crazy stuff in the next couple weeks here. So what's the point? Black is going to try to hold on to this pawn. But now white almost always gets a huge center with the move E4, and black protects his pawn. We're going to look at a lot of sidelines today, so we're not going to get to the main line of the Botvinnik tonight. So we will come back. I kind of want to go through it so we can all see it, just so we know what we're looking at here tonight. We will come back and we'll look at the positional move A4. Let's see, so let's take on C4, E4, and we protect our pawn. And now after E5, it looks like black may have blundered. But this is in fact all right. So he's attacking our knight, and our knight is pinned, so we can't move our knight. And there's a lot of people in here, so I guess I'll just we'll start off with a simple question. What move does black have to play? H6, yeah. So you have to play the move H6. So if you take my knight, I take your bishop. And after you go back, we still need to break this pin, so we have to play G5. Okay. And now white almost always plays this very interesting sacrifice. And we will come back to this position, but we'll just show the main line with H takes. There also exists this very interesting yet very dubious option, but has a lot of venom. There's a lot of potential for black or white to go wrong if he doesn't know what he's doing. So you're kind of taking a gamble if you play that way. We'll have a look at it. But after you take, so he gave up a piece, but you'll notice that black is going to get the piece back because this knight can't really move away. And if this queen ever moves away, then we'll take the knight. So the main line is knight b to d7. We will also look at tonight, this will be the third thing that we look at, perhaps the most natural move. You just break the pin with the bishop, and you don't lose a pawn that way. But we'll come back. And so we're going to look at the main line just for a second. White likes to put his bishop on this nice diagonal. Boop. Okay, and so something like this is going to be the focus of our lectures in the future. And in here, white usually plays knight to a4. But we'll also look at this very interesting option, rook to b1, in the next class. So we'll focus more on that later. But just to give you an idea, so you can see that it gets kind of crazy. Stuff is pinned, and everything is sort of wild in these variations. And at least some very complicated and interesting, positions that you get pawn structures you don't get in any other openings. Okay, but we're going to return here to when we just took on c4. And I want to look just for a second at the move a4, which seems like a very tempting option. But this doesn't give white any real advantage. So there's actually a couple ways that black can equalize in this position. So it's not as popular, but it's actually been played at the top level pretty recently in the last Sinkfield Cup. We saw it. We're also going to see a game played in 2014 between some pretty decent players that played this way. So bishop to b4 is the most normal move you can play. After e4, I just want to show one game so you can get kind of an idea of how this is. And this is probably the most positional type of game that we're going to see. We're going to see wild, crazy tactics, but the a4 lines are a lot more positional. And in the game Wei Yui versus Magnus Carlsen from Nice 2009, Carlsen actually got a favorable pawn structure right here, right out of the opening, by taking on c3. And what's funny about this position is that the most popular move is b5. However, none of the top players have played it, which is something that happens. Sometimes you look in a database, all the top players are either taking the knight or playing queen to a5, which is something interesting. When you're looking in a database, it'll show like the most popular moves. But then if you actually look at who the best players are that are doing it, normally you would expect that the opening theory would be your best try for an advantage. But in this case, the super elite don't agree with the average Joes. OK, and now queen a5. So we got some pressure. e5. So notice now if I take here, this would be a big blunder, because I can retreat, get out of check, and then your knight is also hanging. Also, your queen sort of stuck. OK, so in the game, after knight to e5, e4, the bishop retreated to d2. And what I like about this game is it's a very typical Carlsen game where he doesn't get too much, but you'll notice, OK, he has a nice d5 square for his pieces. And he doesn't really try, he doesn't have to try too hard to get a very big advantage. And it looks like he didn't really do anything in this game, and he just slowly outplayed his opponent. So in this game, he centralized his queen. His plan going forward is to play c5, and then one of his pieces can come to the c6 square. So we'll see that happen. White played a5. One of the ideas is to prevent black from playing b5, because now I can take en passant. Also, after c5, which was played, it gives us the option of queen a4. OK, and we'll get through this game kind of quickly because it's the most boring of all the games we're going to look at today. So he just traded queens and put his bishop on c6. And there's not much really for either side. Maybe black's a little bit better, but it's not too much. But this is the kind of position Carlsen is really good at. He can make this. Yeah, so Carlsen is black here. He just slight. All I need is a couple squares. That's all I need. I got some tension in the center. Brings his other knight out. Now the rook comes to c1. So black has been waiting because maybe I want to make sure I get the two bishops away from you. So he's been thinking, OK, maybe I'll just take this guy whenever you protect this pawn. So now this pawn is finally protected. So white's next move is going to be bishop to e3. So it's kind of tempting to take the bishop now while you can. But he decided to do some other stuff that was also really good for him. So instead of capitalizing on that advantage, he decided to play for another advantage. So that's why he's the best. After king e7, and the bishop moved away, so he let the bishop move away. Played the move b5. Now taking en passant won't really make much sense if I get the a file for myself. If you take it, and then I get the a file. That's going to be good for me. So he just dropped back to d3, and c4 was played. I'm not really too worried about you giving me your bishop. So the bishop went back. And you'll notice now there's some slight discoordination in the white camp here. So some of these guys are just slightly awkward, and black has some very nice pieces. We have a chance to continue to undermine the center going forward. And black always had just a slightly better position, and it just led to a slight initiative, which is just enough for Carlsen. And now in this position, there's 4 ways to take back, which is really hard unless you're Magnus Carlsen. Then you'll play the best way. So he went here. And one point is, this knight actually might be better going to d5. Okay, and so this happened in knight d5. So, okay, black has just done well to coordinate his pieces a little bit better than his opponent. f3 was played so that nothing ever happens here. And here he took. And black is the first one to get to the open file. And so it's not much. This isn't huge. Your computer will say like very close to 0, 0, 0. And you'd expect over the next couple moves, maybe we're all going to put our rooks on the d file. We're going to trade all the pieces. We're going to agree to a draw. Also, I believe this was a blindfold game. It was probably a rapid blindfold game, so I suppose that should be mentioned. Which is another reason, he's not doing anything overly complicated. But the mistake that was made in the game coming up will kind of make us think, how did he not calculate that right? Well, he probably wasn't looking. And here white should just simply defend this pawn that was attacked. And then everything's equal. However, he played the move bishop to e4, which is the mistake that cost the game. Yeah, and as the audience is pointing out, you can just take the pawn. So he must have thought that you can't do this. White thought he had a trick, but trick doesn't work.
He thought the pin would work.
Yeah, so he went king to d4 and said, ha, 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 your bishop's hanging, you can't go back. If you take my bishop, I take your rook. But Carlsen found the only move that is, probably wins. What did black play in this position? So it's tough. You gotta play the best move here. This is what white must have overlooked. Rook d8 is interesting, but your rook is hanging.
No, that's not good.
Yeah.
Going down a whole rook there. No.
All right, you want to sacrifice an exchange? But now I'm up in exchange.
No, that's not it.
No, you have better. King f6, yeah. King f6 was played. And, okay, he went here. Yeah, right, so this is what he must have overlooked. Because if here, rook d8. And you can block either way. Let's block this way because the mate is funnier. So this is what white must have overlooked. And so he lost the pawn. No big deal, unless you're playing world champion. And I just grind you down. So instead, rook d1. And now he just saves his bishop. And okay, the rest of this was very technical, and we've gone slightly beyond the opening, so we're going to try to get through it quickly.
Been something like that at such high level.
Well, they're not looking, so yeah. It's easy to make these mistakes when you're not looking. So they traded lots of stuff, and it's not like a huge amount. It's just one pawn, and it's a rook end game. Sometimes you can draw those. Well, black had a really nice plan here. He doesn't want his rook to be tied up here. His rook needs to go do stuff. So he brought his king over here. White tries to push his majority. Okay, and so all that happened, and we protect here. And he just has a simple plan of going and getting this guy, which was enough. So with some super grandmaster technique, he was able to just go get all these guys up here. And white resigned. So a super positional approach with the move a4. And it's interesting that black can actually get, and we all started to, the opening, just the pawn structure was just a little bit better for black here in this position, because after we take, we can kind of force you to play e5. And That's all we need. You just need to remember that, okay, you play c5, you can get your bishop into the game, your knight can come into the game, and Carlsen just had a great game. Make sure queen's in the middle. So that's the most positional line that we're going to look at tonight. And I mean, it's thought to not really give an advantage. If white wants to play for the biggest advantage theoretically possible, in this position he should play e4. So now it doesn't make any sense to like break this pin because we can take on c4, we can play e5. So we protect our pawn. That was the whole point of our play. And now e5. Okay, so black plays h6. Got to break the pin. Maintain the pin. Got to break the pin. And we sacrifice. Now again, the main move is to take the knight. But I just want to test the audience a little bit with a very, very interesting, very suspicious sort of a gambit here. This is the Torts variation. It pretty much loses by force. But if you've never seen this, I think you'll have a lot of difficulty coming up with all the right moves here. So I do want to put the audience to the test a little bit more with this variation.
So it loses for which side by force?
Yeah, so yeah, white wins.
Okay.
Yeah. Though it's very complicated because black's going to get a lot of activity coming up. It's going to happen.
By force.
Yeah, because you're going to win material here. How does white win material? Queen h5. So I'm wondering if I can just actually take this. Queen h5. It's interesting. I mean, I guess I have to do this and whatever the consequences are. Do you have anything? Because I'm also, if you take my rook, I take your bishop.
My position is if you take.
Yeah, so in this position, I took your knight because you didn't.
Pieces for a rook.
Yeah.
I was just thinking knight f3.
So yeah, in this position here, knight f3 probably does give white a very slight advantage. So you actually can play it this way. It's interesting. And if you don't want to learn any theory, you can just do that and be like, haha, I'm just a little bit better. But some people want to win, and especially if you're studying and analyzing a variation that you might get in the future, and you can have a win, you should play the winning move. Yeah, knight takes f7. A revealed attack on the queen. Also, we're attacking the rook on h8. So the queen is the most important. So we take the bishop, and white takes the rook. However, I want to take a look at a move that's never been played before in this position. The move g3. And what's interesting is when I was just analyzing this, and nobody's ever played this move because it loses for white, so white is flipped the script. But I think it's very difficult to find the actual best, most accurate moves here. So I'm going to try to win quick and dirty with white, even by playing a losing move. And I'm going to test the audience just to see if you can survive. And it's just to give you an idea that some of these variations get incredibly tactical. They get really complex. It's not easy. So I just want to put you guys to the test. What would you guys do if you were black in this position? Knight c3 is the only move, yeah. Okay. Now, I assume you would find the right moves if I played one of these obvious moves. I'm going to play the trickiest move. And now I'm going to challenge you to find the best move. Now, I don't want to talk about the move that wins easily, because that's too easy. I want to talk about the best move, because I think it's more challenging and more tactical and cool and awesome. What is the most accurate move here for black? And at home, you can pause if you need more time. So queen e4 wins pretty easily, because then you trade the queens, and then it's pretty easy. But I want to challenge you to play the most accurate move. No, that's a good move. That's a good move. But play a better move. And you would only play the, like, so if you didn't know this position, you would just trade the queens and then win that way. But I'm only asking you guys to be as strong as my engine was at home. That's all I'm asking.
Queen D4.
Yeah, queen takes d4.
Queen takes d4. Yeah, this is the move.
Yeah.
Though, did you see this? Did you see this position? I just take back.
Bishop B4.
Yeah, awesome. Bishop b4. That's the move. That's the move. Pinning the pawn. Yeah, which is just fantastic. And my favorite variation, well, first I'll give this variation, the Machuca Variation, that I showed to Danny. Black actually here has a surprisingly strong move. And I'll give it away. Close. Rook f8 is close. Castle. Yeah, and then, yeah, Black's crushing it. He's doing fantastic. Yeah, just castle. So that move's awesome. I think my favorite computer line, though, the computer wants you to go here, which now it looks scary because it like goes here. It doesn't care about nothing. It goes here, and then just laughs. Just laughing at you, and Black wins. Yeah, you got to check me a lot. I should be really scared, but I'm not. And then, you know. So that's the sort of really complicated stuff. Now, G3 has never been played, but now it's on the internet, so, you know, people could start playing. If you don't want a winning position and you want to try to win really quick, instead of patiently winning a winning position, you can try G3 here. But okay, let's take on H8. So we didn't play G3. And now Black plays bishop to B4. And so notice how active I am. You know, my queen, knight, and bishop, they're all getting pretty close. You got some threats right here. And over the next couple moves, Black has a couple different ways to try to get all of his pieces into the attack. Well, I am threatening C3. So the most natural move here is the best. Just defend with the rook. And now two different moves have been tried in this position. Queen e4, which is probably objectively the best move. And then c5, which the computer hates, horrible, but probably gives you better practical chances. Well, because objectively it's a very bad move. That's why it hates it, because it defends right, and then it's like, yeah, horrible. But if you're a human and you played this variation knowing that it's dubious,
It depends.
it seems like it's like such a natural move, right? I'm trying to break down your center. Now I have this open for my bishop.
Yeah.
You know, my knight's going to come here with some pressure on all the important squares.
Right. So what is it?
The computer hates it because it just defends right. It's like, horrible, I just defend, easy, easy. Yeah, so we'll go over this. But again, I just wanted to point out that the reason you played this variation is not to play, you know, exactly the most objective way to play it. You're playing Russian roulette. You're playing this way hoping that white doesn't know the refutations, and then you can win quickly because you get all this activity.
What does the computer defend?
Okay, it takes there. Yeah. And it all looks good. But in this line, at least white will get to castle. And white castles. And there's still a lot of room to go really wrong.
I can see why the computer thinks it's horrible.
Yeah, computer, yeah, it's like I defended and I castled. And you're not going to have any checkmating attack because I can defend against everything.
Now Black's
I mean, it looks kind of scary because I got these guys that might possibly come in. Nah, just don't believe it.
no.
Right, because yeah, there is nothing. And so here, just this is easy enough for white.
But C5 is too slow.
C5 is too slow, yeah. Because yeah, white just gets the castle. Well, this causes you a little bit more problems. All right, let's try queen to e4. What would you guys play in this position? So if you play queen e2 and you undefend your d pawn, you're sort of justifying my play a little bit. You know, I got a pawn back, I got more pressure on c3. And if you play queen h5, I like just run away.
Well,
So yeah, we don't want to give him that. Yeah, bishop e2. Yeah, so we're not worried about you taking on g2. We would just play bishop f3. All right, but what now? And so this is sort of the idea. I'm just going to ask you a lot of questions. So you can't castle because queen takes g2. What are you going to do? So rook g1 was suggested. I'm pretty sure just run away. I don't know. Yeah, I looked at this. I'm trying to remember. So it might have been queen h7 here, and it said like equal. I'm trying to remember. So I think this is fine. I think also doing nothing was fine. King d8, and like doing nothing is also fine. You didn't really want to put your rook there. I mean, it's probably equal, but you have better, and we want to totally refute black's play here.
Oh, F3.
Yeah, F3. The problem with F3 is in a lot of these lines, you actually want to play bishop to H5.
Right.
That's usually a big thing. You didn't really want your pawn here.
Right.
So I can just sneak in. I can also play queen H7 in that position.
What does that do though, sneaking in?
Well, so still you can't castle, and I mean, what do? I'm still going to take on G2 next. What do you, it still looks pretty dangerous.
Yeah, but just play king F1. White's probably better.
I don't know. I'm going to do nothing. Let me go get your guy. Yeah, but yeah. This might be okay too for you for white, but you can do even better than this. So again, we're trying to avoid playing the moves we don't want to play. We didn't really want to play F3. We didn't want to block in their bishop. And we can do even better. Rook c2.
No?
So this was my big threat. And if here, I have this move. Which is going to be a recurring theme in these lines.
Yeah, so
we got to be careful.
I'm probably the best move, right?
Yeah, the best move, yeah. And that's the point. That's why you play this as black. Because even with an audience full of people... Oh, sorry. Even with an audience full of people, and we got some pretty high-rated people here, it's difficult. That's why you play it as black. Because you have to learn all of this as white. Otherwise, it's easy to blunder it to an equal position, and it's easy to just lose because look at all this stuff going on. So we're kind of seeing the problem. Our king can't really go this way. So that's not a very good way for him to escape. So he's going to have to escape a different way.
Queen has to go to d2.
So queen d2
Yeah, I saw
is the move.
And the check's still gonna happen.
And this is the most common move. If here,
So what?
so what? Yeah, okay. Yeah, audience got it. So what? And now you can check. Yeah, you're going to win the rook, yeah. So what? Yeah, that's the right attitude. We can just go here. And yeah, then white says, so what? And he laughs. And then he goes on to win. So this is what you would need to know to refute this. And then you have to move your queen. One issue, so there's actually, this has been played a couple times by humans. And every human makes this mistake. And then you're really lost. So you have to play queen to g2. Because if you let me go here, there's bad stuff here. And there's bad stuff here. And that's too much bad stuff. You gotta not let me do that much bad stuff on both diagonals. So this is already like totally crushing.
There's a more severe threat in the position.
It's a more severe threat in the position. Was it?
Yeah, like rook h1.
Rook h1, that's pretty serious. Yeah, so yeah, it's just
Crushing right now.
yeah, it's not very good. So you'd have to play here, which no humans have played, and white is winning. So yes, that's what you need to know if you want to play this crazy variation. So we'll go back just to the very, very beginning here. So knight to d5 in this position, the Torts variation. Very risky, but you can also win, if you're trying to confuse your opponent, especially, if you're lower rated, it's a great weapon because it's very difficult to figure out if it's first time. It's something you got to kind of know. Okay, and I did want to look at one more variation, so we'll just return to this variation again. We'll just see it from the very top, bishop to g5. We take on c4. They get the big center. We hold on to our pawn. They attack our knight. h6. break the pin, they sacrifice. Okay, and this time we're not going to play knight d5. We're going to take on g5, which is the most common way, and they take back. Now, if you play here, which is the main line, it's black that's actually sacrificing a pawn. But in these positions, one thing that doesn't matter is material. Everybody sacks everything in these kind of lines, and they get to be really crazy. So we're going to see that in the next couple of weeks. So the fact that this is your extra pawn doesn't mean a whole lot. But what if you play the move bishop to e7? Because now I break the pin, and I'm not going to lose a pawn. And kind of for a long time, I thought this was the way that people that don't really know this position play. Because I've had people that, they don't know this. This is the most natural move, bishop to e7. I'm going to win my pawn back. Because after you take my knight, I can take back. But there's actually quite a lot of venom if black knows what he's doing. And this, too, is also a pretty great surprise weapon. But you do have to be prepared to have nerves of steel if you want to play this way as black, as we're going to see. OK, so we just took our pawn back. Sounds great. And white could consider dropping his bishop back, which is not the most common move. But if you just compare the bishops, you might notice one is better than the other. And if you trade, it might actually be black that has some issues on the dark squares. Black's moved quite a lot of pawns and has a lot of dark squared weaknesses. Maybe you can get your knight in there. But this is sort of the starting point here. Okay, in all these lines, we want to put our bishop on this open diagonal. And the most common move here might surprise you. Knight a6. You can also start with bishop to b7 and then knight a6. And in these lines, the knight's going to go to a6 and not to d7. And I'll explain why in a second. So after here. Now, in these lines, notice if your knight was here, one of the things is you're going to castle. So if funny stuff happens on this diagonal, like this, which is not the most common move. We're going to look at a different game, Nakamura-Aronian, that was played here in St. Louis in 2014, with knight to e4, so the professional choice. But if knight to b5, you want to be able to castle, and then since you're not blocking in your rook, also if you were here, then they could play knight to d6. But by not blocking in your rook, you also have some additional pressure here on the center. So that's why the knight is developed to a6. Okay. Well, let's look at this. I mean, why not? That seems like very, very natural. Oh, you just blundered along that diagonal. How amateurish. And so castling is a very good move. But I want to look at an interesting move first. I'm going to take your knight. Which also looks like a big blunder. Because now I take on b7, and I'm forking your pieces. And I'm going to challenge you, and you can pause at home. What did black have in mind? So you have to find a way. And again, these positions are, your computer's always going to say everything's equal. All these lines are a draw. But it's tough. You have to know stuff. Yeah, knight b4. This is the move. Also possible, but not as good, is rook to b8. And you can trap this bishop, sort of. But even better is knight to b4. And this check, it's a very brutal check. Notice, draw some arrows here. So for example, if you're too greedy, this check is not good for you. So probably you have to give up your queen here. Because if you go here, the best move is actually to take right here. And yeah, you don't have a lot of escaping, and I'm doing discoveries, and this is really, really bad for you. So how quickly that went awry. So you can't even take the rook. Okay, so let's say we just castle. Okay, now it's not check if you play knight to d3. Now we just bring our rook in, and we attack the pawn. And so you get this position. So it's still very, very complicated, but black does have his attacking possibilities. So immediately we're going to win this guy. You know, we got some active pieces here. This guy is coming to a pretty good square. So it's actually a very interesting and really complicated way for black to play. So a very interesting line if you're interested in looking at it. But let's look at the more played line, which is you take my pawn, I just castle. So now I got some pressure here, and you got to decide what to do with your knight. Now I want to look at 3 moves in this position. The most common human move in this position is a forced draw. It's just very quick draw, perpetual check. Excuse me. There's also the computer line that humans don't play. And then there's the line that humans would play, you know, if they're like trying to win and don't want to play the computer line. The most common move in this position is queen to a4. And then draw, 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 0, 0, 0. Okay, we take, check, and we get this draw, and we repeat. You have to take the draw here with white.
Otherwise you lose.
Otherwise you lose. And black has a move here that's like so powerful the computer announces mate. Like, you put this on the thing and it's like, you know, mate in 50, obviously. So you do have to find one super powerful move here, but if you find it, the engine throws up huge numbers and then announces mate. Yeah, queen f3. You know, it's not really the hardest move, and then white has to give up his rook. I think the best move is to like take here. If you, for example, go here, there's threats. Actually, I think queen e4 might be more accurate. But like this leads to mate, and this is wherever your king goes. This is going to lead to like mate. I'm going to do some stuff like this. And then bloop, bloop, bloop. So there's going to be those such checkmates. So I have all these mating threats, and also, you know, rook to g1 doesn't help because I'm taking on h2. So this is just really bad. And, you know, you're so bad the computer like announces mate, which is kind of surprising. But so you have to take the draw with white. And okay, usually when you're playing an opening as black and white wants to draw, yeah, it's fine. I had black. So let's take a look at some different options. Well, the computer, its move is to take. Why not just take the pawn? It's fine, it's cool. Now, you should really play king to b8. If king to c7, which I think is very tempting because you're protecting this guy is kind of trapped, what's going on? Well, white actually has a pretty powerful maneuver that is really good for him. And this, yeah, this is just like such a strong maneuver that, I guess I didn't put it in there, but it's just, what do you do now? You know, if you have to go back, then we're taking on c6, and that didn't really work. And if you don't, let's just play some random move. Let's just take something. Queen a5 is always a super annoying move.
Queen b6.
Yeah, I thought even if queen b6 I had here. King d7, I castle long. Yeah.
Oh, there.
Right, so you can't really block with your rook because your other rook's hanging. Yeah, it's it's brutal stuff. It's brutal stuff. Yeah, the queen a4 to a5 is really devastating. Okay, but king b8. All right, you're going to take on c6. I get it. I get it, you know. I basically have to take it. And now you have to find the right move. And it's the move you're always trying to play in all of this type of positions. Knight c5 is interesting, and it's on the right track, but I assume I can just castle here. So it's on the right track, but there's a slight difference between this move and this move. Yeah, knight b4. More accurate for a very, very interesting reason. Notice in this position, castling loses a bishop. Did you notice that? let's see, so knight to b4. So you kind of got to move your bishop, but also you're facing this check. Okay, and then if they check here, you got to worry about this guy. Bishop to f3. And black has two moves. One good move is to take the pawn. That's a good move. But I'm going to play here. A little bit more forcing. Okay, you go here. I go here. And we've seen how powerful that queen can actually be on f3. And white only has one move in this position. So good luck. I am on your rook. I do have this sort of idea. Castle? Yeah, so that's actually interesting. Yeah, so you can't really castle this way because of a common tactical trick.
You just sack on H2.
You just take on h2.
Yeah.
Right, and the point is if here, whoop.
Right.
So yeah, very common tactical trick to keep in mind. So you can't castle. You did that before? You sacked the stuff or you got mated that way? You sacked a rook that way? That's pretty cool. It's always fun. It is a fun one to do, and it's often overlooked. All right, so you gotta play the right move here. Yeah, these positions are tough. Rook f1 is a mistake. Take on d4. And my threat, let me do nothing, is to go here and here. And there's nothing you can really do about it.
Okay, so that's not.
Yep, so that's not it.
It's now or never.
It's now or never? What are you gonna do?
King D2.
King d2. Wow, what a crazy, crazy move.
You gotta run.
All right, go ahead and run away. You gonna run?
Oh my god, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, you go back, your rook's hanging. Yeah, good. Nope, you can't run away with your king that way. Can't go that way. Can't do it. Queen c4,
No.
which was right in the other line.
No, this doesn't work.
Taking your rook. Did you have something in mind? All right, let me just, let me just be really greedy.
Perpetual.
And you think you got a perpetual?
No, he doesn't.
I think I'm gonna run away.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Not even.
Not even close. Okay, so now you can do better as white. Really?
Tough to see.
Yeah. All right, that's tough. That's why I'm asking you. Rook g1, Mario Roper. Only move. Yep, that's it. And the point is, you have this square for your king. You need to run the other way. So in the event of this, you know, right? You always can run away. And okay, still complicated. Draw. And that's how a lot of these lines are. Really, really complicated. It's always a draw, but you know, good luck finding all these games in a real game over the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah.
Only move draw.
Oh, yeah. Only move draws and yeah. So these positions are crazy. And okay, I did want to show one last line. The move knight a3, which is the only other human move that people play. You know, queen a4 was a draw. Okay, I play knight a3. Seems good. I'm gonna reemerge. I'm still here. I just grabbed your b pawn. You're over there. You know, your castle's weakened. I'm doing great. And it's true to a point. I take here on d4. Main move is queen e2. But knight b4 because in all these lines you always play knight to b4.
Oh, white's just better.
And castles. And white maybe is better, but it's complicated. And the computer here says you only have like one move to stay equal with white. Also very difficult because it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, the computer's like, yeah, you gotta go here with your queen. Brilliant. And then, you know, it continues. So, but I mean, again, it's just still a messy position, and that's what you're playing for. You know, this is a wreck, but I have some very active pieces. I got this knight. He's looking pretty good. you know, this pawn will eventually maybe go forward, and this guy's going to be good. I got look at
Queen E1.
Yeah, queen.
yeah, queen e1, and the computer is like, yep. And good job, white, you equalized again. Yeah, it looks okay. I mean, that looks like a decent move, but at the supercomputer level, if you were only 3,300 rated, you would, you know, realize queen e1 is the better move. And yeah, but I mean, these are always fun to check with engines because they come up with such brilliant stuff that you would like never come up with. So I hope I shared some of that with you guys tonight. Yeah. And yeah, so these are the kinds of positions that I hope you guys enjoy, and play with these with your computers because they'll come up with some pretty imaginative stuff, which is also good for your chess, trying to find some. And that's the whole point about the Botvinnik variation. There's so many positions that just don't really make sense to humans. That's why I tell everybody these are the most complicated positions in chess, because no matter what, you always come up with like the craziest computer line, and it always laughs at you after your game, and it's like everything else could have been better. You're the worst, ha ha ha, puny mortal. But they come up with some pretty great stuff, and so that's sort of the intro to the Botvinnik variation. We're going to cover the main lines next week. So thanks everybody for coming out. It was a great class. As always, hit like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.